Hello everyone! Do a quick sound check. Can you hear me alright? So there is about a 30-second delay in the chat, just so you know. That's why I'm waiting. Alright, good. Looks like the chat's not working. One sec, let me get that fixed. Alright, so we'll do that, and then... Sorry about this. Alright. That should do it. Alright, very good. So, thank you for joining me. How many do we have on at the moment? Not as many as we're interested in the dungeon tiles. That's alright. So, thanks for joining me. This is our second live stream. Tonight we're going to make some cardstock miniatures. This is the same as I did back in episode 9, except we're going to do it in real time and talk about some little tiny nuances and tips that didn't make it into the episode for sake of time. But I'll show you how easy it is to do in real time. These are, if you make these, you should use them at home to your heart's content, but don't expect to take them to a formal event or anything, because you're using copyrighted work, and most events are going to require that you use their sanctioned, their actual stuff anyway. So, just a little disclaimer there. All right, hey everyone. Okay. We're going to be using Photoshop CS2 tonight, which is ancient, but and it has a little glitch that I hope doesn't pop up. GIMP, G-I-M-P, is an alternative, and I'm going to show you that right now. So this is freeware, which has all the capabilities that Photoshop has for what we're going to do, but it implements them differently. So the keystrokes are different, and it's laid out differently, and it's been on my list for 2 years. I simply have not had time to learn it, so I'm sorry about that. You can easily take the stuff that I'm doing and do a Google search and find out how to do this in GIMP, because there really are not that many steps to what we're doing here tonight. Okay, so yes, Photoshop is ancient, Lauren. Yeah, thank you for joining. Alright, so I would like to begin by picking what figure we're going to do. And here's how we'll do this. One of you will get to pick, and we'll do it like this. I'm going to state some song lyrics. So get your hands on the keyboard, and the first person to name the song title, not the artist, but the song title, will get to pick the figure. Okay? Alright, so here are the lyrics. Glittering prizes and endless compromises shatter the illusion of integrity. And go. "30-second delay, so see who won. No one yet. No one yet. Harrison gave up. Alec, you answered before I even finished the lyrics, so... There it is. Alec got it. Alright. Sai, you had the right band. Alright, so Alec Muir, you got it. So here's what I want you to pick a figure for us to do. And it should be a humanoid. Okay, we're going to do a standard like humanoid-sized figure. So an orc, you could pick a class, a race, whatever. So what do you got? What should we make? Wizard. All right, easy enough. Male or female? Actually, we're not going to wait the 30 seconds. I'll just pick one. All right, so wizard. So here's what we do. Take you to here, and we're going to go to Google, and we'll just search on wizard. Okay, let me make sure that I am sharing my screen here. Yep. Okay. And then we go to Google image search. Okay, so this is where I get my images. Now what I like to do is change, in the tools here, I change the size to large. And this will make sure I get a high resolution image. And that's important, I'll tell you why in a few minutes. Now look at these. These are not really what we're after here. It is ideal to find something with white space around it like this. Okay, this picture looks awesome, but it has a background. And you can remove that, but it's tricky and it's a lot of work. And I just like to find things with a white background, but that's not going to work. So we'll refine our search a little bit. Let's say elf wizard. Okay, some risque results. All right, that's okay. This one looks all right. Yeah, so if we view image, and it looks like this one's already got a background. I'm just going to spend 30 more seconds on this to find a good one. All right. Let's go with this one. This one looks a little bit challenging. Yeah, that'll be cool. So here's what we do. We'll view the image. I'm going to right click and copy image. Then I'm going to go into Photoshop, all right, and do a new document, and it automatically populates with the size of the image that's in the clipboard, which is convenient. I don't think GIMP does that, but anyway. And then I'm going to Control V to paste it in. All right, are you with me so far? I gotta figure out a better way for this chat. Yeah, so I'm sorry, when I'm sharing the screen, I can't see the chat. I'm seeing what you guys are seeing. All right, so Lord of the Rings Ranger. Third row far, oh, sorry, I didn't see it. Okay, so first thing I like to do is, so I'm gonna do a new document, Control N, and I'm gonna specify this in inches. It'll be 8.5 by 11, which is standard printer paper, at least in the United States. And I'm going to do this at 300 pixels per inch, also known as DPI, dots per inch. 300 DPI is good. Between 200 and 300 is a noticeable difference. Above 300, with a home printer like I use, you can't really see a difference, so that's as high as we want to go. Alright, this checkerboard means it's empty. It doesn't have white in it, it's empty. So I'm going to set the foreground color and fill it with white. Alright, and now I have, basically, this is my page, the actual literal physical page in the real world. Because it's sometimes, depending on the software you're using, you might get scaling issues when you print. I like to just create the whole canvas as it literally exists in the real world. Alright, so over here, I'm going to use the Magic Wand tool. And the way this works is any color that you click, it will select all of the neighboring pixels that are of the same color. So if we click the white, it has selected all the white around her. So I've done that, and I'll press delete on the keyboard, and now it's gone. Okay? So now we just have the figure with transparency behind it, which is great. So I'm going to Control A to select all, Control C to copy, and then over here, Control V to paste it in. Alright, and I can close this one, I'm done with it. Okay, I'm going to check the chat for questions. One monitor, yes. I'll tell you what, once a channel gets me enough revenue, I'll buy a second monitor. GIMP, you just saved the image and open it in GIMP. Alright, good to know. Alright. So, the next thing to do is to scale this thing correctly. Okay, because right now it's like, what, a quarter of the page, which is 3 inches or something. So, I want to make this a standard 28mm miniature. There's lots of conventions out there. At least in wargaming, 28mm refers to bottom of the foot to the eye level. Okay, which is kind of arbitrary to me, but anyway. So we're going to specify in millimeters, and I'll just do, the width doesn't matter, 10mm. The height will be 28mm, and again we're working at 300 DPI. Okay. And just so I can see it clearly, I'm going to fill this with red. So Alt backspace to fill it with red. And then select all, copy, and paste. Now we can close that, we don't need it anymore. So here it is, and we're going to take her. Now notice the feet are not at the same height. When that happens, what I like to do is just come over and get the rectangular marquee tool, or any selection tool will work really. Select a little bit of that foot, Control T to start a transform and squish that selection. Okay, so if you hadn't seen this before, you wouldn't notice this. You would think it looks fine. And when it's printed and on the table, it's tiny. You don't notice. All right, so let me, up here, I'm going to zoom into 50% here. And I'm going to put the feet at the bottom of the gauge. Control T again to start a transform. And I'm going to hold on to Shift as I drag this handle. That's going to constrain the proportions. Here's what happens if I don't do that. You can do this. You see, if you hold on to Shift, it's impossible. It doesn't matter where you put it. It makes sure it does it uniformly. All right. So I'm going to shrink it down and go with my mouse, and there we go. So the eyes are at the top of the gauge. The feet are at the bottom of the gauge. All right. So now she is the correct height. So I can delete the gauge. I don't need that anymore. Over here, by the way, are your layers. And what I just did was, when you paste things in, they get pasted to a new layer. So this one here is the gauge. I'm going to delete that. And for organization, I'll go ahead and label that figure. All right, we're almost done, believe it or not. So now there's two ways to do what I'm about to do. I'm going to show you both. I'll make a duplicate of this layer and put it aside. So for this one, again, I'll select the Magic Wand tool. I'm going to select all of the space around her. I'm going to invert my selection, which is Control-Shift-I, or select inverse. And then select, modify, expand by 10 pixels. So we just selected the border that is her, and then we've expanded it by 10 pixels. Okay, I'm going to do a new layer, which is Control-Shift-N. I'm going to call it Shadow, and fill it with black. Now, she didn't disappear. When you made the new layer, it appeared over the other layer. So we'll move it back behind, just like that. Oh, I did that over here. So you move your layers like this. And now she has a nice black border around her. This is good for when we're cutting it. The scissors will have a lot of rooms for error if you don't fold it over exactly. All right, I'm going to pause for questions. Big monster, please. All right, we might do one later. We'll see how much time we have. What heights do you use for smaller or larger creatures? For smaller creatures, it's whatever you feel feels right. Okay, so I think in episode 9 I used 1 3/8 of an inch or something as a standard. D&D miniatures tend to be that. So the height is scale it however you feel works. I like to take a standard human fighter and make that my reference. And then every other miniature I ever create, I always paste that guy in and scale them until it looks right next to him. So if it's a dwarf, a halfling, well, he should be, I don't know, 2/3 the height of that fighter. Okay? And if it's a dragon, well, I want him to be pretty big, but also so that he fits on a 3-inch base or whatever size he is. In case anyone is buying minis, ironic given the current stream, 25mm and 1/72 the same size. Okay, good to know. Okay, Terry, thanks for being here. Do you have a problem with the shadow with dark colored minis? Ah, we're about to get there. I paused. That's the very next step. Thank you for asking. Okay, so you'll notice this is a pretty dark figure, but what I'm about to tell you applies regardless. You got to learn what your home printer's tendencies are. Mine is to print pretty dark. So what I'll do with this is two things. Image, so first of all, select the figure that we're interested in. Image, adjustments, and then you can do, first of all, hue saturation. Some artwork out there is not as vivid as you might like, or will look kind of unvivid on your printer. So here's where you can boost the saturation and look at the tone of her skin and the red book on her hip. See the difference? So here's standard, unmodified, and now here is bumping up the saturation. You don't want to go too crazy with this. Generally what I do is just a little tweak like that to make it a little bit richer. And while I'm at it, there is a lightness slider here, and we can make it a little bit lighter. Now you'll notice this might look a little washed out, okay, a little bleached, but when you print it on your printer, which biases dark, it's going to look much better. Okay? One other thing, some people out there like to have a white halo around their figure. I hate that personally. I don't think it looks very good at all. But if you wanted to, you go to blending options, outer glow. We'll change it to white. And we'll just bump up the size of that glow a little bit. Okay, spread. So right there, you can see we've got a nice white outer glow, which was done, again, in the layer style. So you right-click the layer and you go to blending options. So that also, for dark figures, may help pop it out a little bit. I don't like the way that looks on the table. I think it's distracting, just my opinion. So I'm going to undo that. The other way to add the shadow is easier. I don't know if GIMP can do this exactly, but Photoshop, again, we're going to go to blending options for the layer. And down here is stroke. I'm going to change the color to black. And we're going to do 10 pixels. And that gives you the same result. Okay, so two ways to do it. I didn't do it that way in episode 9 because I didn't know what all the freeware was capable of. Alright, so right now we have the figure and we have the shadow. I'm going to pause for questions real quick. Why is the border important? So we'll see that in a few minutes once we print it. Shan Moyers, thanks very much. Spirit of Radio, a little late. Haven't tried wargaming yet, but I have downloaded the rules for Age of Fantasies. What should I keep in mind for my first game? I would say don't attempt to make cardstock minis for your whole army. You will get burnt out and you won't end up playing. Get a piece of cardboard, cut it to the correct base size, because as you may know from reading the rules, I'm sorry, no, I'm thinking of Kings of War. Alright, so I would just say for your first game, don't worry about getting everything correctly. Get models on the table, do a 500-point army, just get something on the table, move them around and throw some dice. Do not worry about getting the rules right. I guarantee you're still going to have a fun time. Guarantee it. If you don't do that though, you're going to burn out and you may not ever get to it. Wolfden Gaming, good to see you again. That it will be a little slow as you adjust to the rules. Yeah, Harrison, you're right. Why would you want the white glow? Again, I guess it's just preference. Visibility on the table. Some people like that way. Alright, back to it. Alright, so believe it or not, we are almost done. We have a layer with our figure, and we have a layer that is her shadow, which is really just our cutting outline. So I'm going to select the figure layer and press Control-E. That merges the layer down. So now they're a single layer. Okay? Over here, I'm going to go and get the line tool, which is over here at the controls. So in the shapes, I'm going to take a line tool. This is just going to be 1 pixel wide. And I'm going to do black. And I'm going to draw it. I'm going to hold Shift as I draw it to make sure it's straight. If I don't hold on to Shift, here, look what happens. You better make sure you have a perfect hand, and no one does. If you hold Shift, it constrains it to 45-degree increments, which is nice. So I'm going to draw it down to here, head to toe pretty much. Alright, now I have a nice 1 pixel line. And I'm going to merge that down as well. Okay? Now this layer, we can rename it. We'll call it figure again. I'm going to duplicate the layer. Doesn't matter what it's called. Whoops. Okay, so that window just disappeared. Again, Photoshop is ancient. In Windows 10, it glitches like this sometimes. It's really annoying. I'm sorry about that, but it's almost done. So, we have 2 copies of it now. I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. This is going to make one of them mirror. Okay? Now, I'm going to hold, again, I'm holding Shift as I'm moving it because that keeps it from, that keeps it constrained to one of the 2 axes. I'm going to move it over, and you can see it popped in there. Photoshop does that. I don't know if GIMP does that, but in any case, let's zoom in to 300%. Using the arrows on my keyboard, and I'm pretty sure all image manipulators do this, you can nudge it by 1 pixel at a time. So you can get it pixel perfect where you want it. And here's where I want it. No gap, both the lines are adjacent, and I know that both sides are at exactly the same height. And this is important because when I print it, we need to be able to fold it in half and be able to cut around that border and be perfect. Alright, so I'm going to merge that down, and now this is one layer and it's ready to go. Most printers have a gutter of 1/4 inch, so I'm not going to put it up here at the corner. Okay, I'm going to zoom out more. I'm going to put it, you know, somewhere away from the edge, like here, where I know it won't get cut off. And just in case we mess up or something, I'm going to put a few on here. So what I just did there, Control A to select all, Control C to copy, Control V to paste. Alright, I'm just pasting the layer and duplicating it. Okay, and now we're ready to go. So two things. If you make a PDF of your stuff, be careful with the scaling. When you save it, check all the options in all the menus to make sure it's not going to scale down or anything. And what I like to do to put in as a safeguard to watch for that, make a new document. We're going to do 1 inch by 1 inch at 300 dpi. Fill it with black, copy it into here. So that's going to show up, and I'll be able to, once it prints, I can take my ruler and measure this on the physical page and make sure that this did not get scaled down on me. Okay, does that make sense? Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and Control P. The image is larger than the pager's printable area. Some clipping will occur. That's correct. The outermost 1/4 inch, I know that will happen. It's okay because I don't have any content there. So I'm printing on my horrible, awful Samsung C410. Don't buy this printer. If you take nothing else away from this broadcast, don't buy this printer. Alright, so while that's printing, I'm going to check for questions. Alright, you have a base color scheme for unique enemies or NPCs. The standard black base with gray dry brush just doesn't make them stand out as special for me. So, a few things. The thing you're talking about is pretty old. I don't do that anymore. I just don't have a lot of pictures of it. As soon as we're done making this mini, I have a slideshow to go through, and I'm going to show you all kinds of different base schemes that I've done. I've recently I actually bought some Citadel grass, static grass, so I'm starting to get serious in it. But the answer is yes. I have a whole bunch of different schemes I use, and for my role-playing stuff, my players each get of course they get a mini, but their bases are uniquely colored, so they can easily pick out which one's theirs on the table. So like the Wizards is blue with a light dry brush, and the Fighters is, you know, brown or something. How long have you had this printer? Too long. Alright. Now you probably won't see this on the web camera, but here's the inch. Well, I'll show you that in a minute. Here's our figure, and it printed out pretty good. Looking at it, and definitely it's actually still a little bit dark. So again, take a look at this. I haven't done this in a while, so I mean we did lighten it up, and when you look at it on the screen here, she does look a little bit bleached out, and it's like, wow, that's gonna look grayish. It's not gonna look good, but I'll tell you, it looks okay, but it's still pretty dark. So home printers tend to bias dark, so mess around with it, experiment. If you decide to get into this stuff, I would recommend just make a whole bunch of copies of this on one page and increasingly make different ones lighter and number them so you can experiment and figure out which one you like, and then you can, you know, brightness plus 20, brightness plus 40. Here's where I did brightness plus 60, etc. All right. So now what we're going to do is hop to the workbench and actually assemble the miniatures. Okay. Now while I'm doing this, I'll turn my monitor so I can glance over at the chat, but I'm going to move the camera and see you in about 30 seconds. Okay. So, first of all, let's check our inch to make sure we're good to go. Yep, 1 inch exactly. So we know it's scaled correctly. We're actually going to make 2 of these right now because I want to show you both base options that I originally did in episode 9. First of all, now that we're moved over, can everyone still hear me okay based on the new location of the microphone? Okay, thanks, William. So, I've cut them out, and we have the line on there, which we know is the perfect mirror image. So I'm going to fold exactly on the line. All right. Now I have this. This is what I use for corrugation cladding on my dungeon tiles and stuff. This is 60-pound cardstock. It's very, very thin cardstock, almost just heavy paper. I got it from Michael's, and again, that is 60-pound cardstock. I don't know what that rating means. I think it's something like it weighs 60 pounds per meter, cubic meter or something. I don't know. Anyway, it's good because it's fairly thin but easy to cut and still rigid given its thickness. The other advantage is, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. So, glue stick, any kind of extra strength glue stick. So don't get kids' school stuff. Anything that says extra strength or maximum strength will work. Doesn't even have to be Elmer's. Slather it on the back. Good coverage all around on the whole thing. And then fold it. Fold it over the cardstock. You'll be able to mess around with it a little bit. The glue's wet. Now you might be wondering, why not just get thick white cardstock and print directly onto that? And then you can fold that in half. You can do that. I used to do that when I had a good printer that could do it. This printer chokes up on anything thicker than plain old white printer paper. But I'm kind of glad that happened because this has another advantage. And we'll talk about it in a minute. Packing tape, such as you might use to move. So when you're mailing something. So I'll just rip a piece off and apply it on one side. Okay, and then on the other, just like that. Smush all 5 layers together, smush it all together. Sorry about that. Thing must have been dangling. Okay, we're real high tech here. All right, let's see what's in chat. All right. Okay, then I'm going to take plain old scissors and cut it out. So, cutting out the detail can be tricky if you make it tricky, but it's easier than you think. First of all, make sure you don't cut out here in the scissors, okay? Cut it more in the crotch. There's a lot more torque and a lot more cutting power in here. You have a lot more control. Second, move the figure more than you move the scissors. You shouldn't just be going like this with this hand. This hand should be doing a lot of the work, all right? So we're going to go ahead and cut this out, and I'm just going to follow along using as little of the black margin as possible. Cut off chunks as you go along to make it easier on yourself. Flip it over in order to get a more convenient angle of attack if you need to. Once you get in a groove with this, it goes real fast. when you're doing a war game army and you're making, you know, 40 of the same thing, you get into a groove, you get into a habit. You can, I'm going pretty slow right now. You can be knocking out one every 30 seconds. I mean, you really can get in a groove and get going. Okay. Now, another important nuance. You'll see that right now it still feels mushy. I could still sort of do this with the figure, if you know what I mean. This is, so take the opportunity, use your palm and flatten it out. Okay, press it all together, and now it's nice and flat. It is important to do the cutting while the glue is wet, because if you don't and the glue dries and the whole thing becomes brittle, when you have that cutting torque there, it will cause your layers to separate. So the advantage of doing it when it's wet is it kind of cinches all 5 layers of material together. We have cardstock, paper on each side, and tape on each side of that. By cutting it when it's wet, it cinches the edge together really well. So, and you'll notice it's flimsy right now. In about 10 minutes, this thing is going to be like it's stiffer than a playing card. It's amazing. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, what I used to do is take a black Sharpie and trace around the edge to blacken it. But since I use that black cardstock, I don't need to, and that saves a ton of time. I mean, a majority of the time. It probably cuts this in by 80%. So that's the other advantage I was talking about with this stuff. All right, I'm going to check the chat for questions. Something like Scotch tape would be better as it's less shiny. If you like that, yeah. I like the way that they're kind of shiny. The shiny tape tends to revivify the colors. They're really vivid. Oh, this is a terrible camera. I'll tell you what, next Patreon goal, new webcam. I had horrible issues with the minis being different on either side when I tried doing this. Was that just error with my folding? It could be. Yes, it is hard to get the perfect fold. Make sure your line is pretty long. We made this line, so 2 tips I would give. Make sure that the line is long, and notice that we did the line along her height. In episode 9, you might remember I did the line above her head, which was not smart. This is the better way to do it, because there's less distance to the outermost part of the figure, if you know what I mean. A little bit of error will propagate, so if you don't fold it perfectly, you'll get some error. So you want to do it as little as possible. For most humanoids, that means do it along their side and put the line as close to them as possible. See how close it is to her hand that's holding that orb? You want that to be as close as possible to minimize the error propagation. So that's how you can improve your mirroring, okay? Do you ever have issues with delamination of the tape and paper layers? No, I've got some of these that are 4 years old now and they're still perfect. What else do you do to speed up the process? Just got here. What else do we do to speed up the process? Well, once you get in a groove in Photoshop, you can knock that out easily. For the physical stuff, I don't know. I would say just do everything that I've just done in real time. If you're going to assembly line, don't allow the glue to dry. Okay, so as tempting as it is to put all of them in a pile and then do all the cutting, you'll have a strong bond if you cut it while it's wet. But as for speeding the process, I mean, you just saw how long this one took. It's really not very long. I should have been doing that. I'm sorry to waste time. I should have been doing this one. So I'll do this. Hopefully it better speed. Oh, I forgot to fold it. Darn it. All right, I'm going to just roll with it. I bet I've done enough of these. Okay, there we go. Packing tape. Some people say, why don't you use a laminator? Well, a laminator costs money. This thing it's like $2 for 6 rolls of tape. And the laminator is inconvenient. If I just want to do a little tiny piece here, then I just want to do a tiny piece. Also, this cardstock probably won't fit through the laminator. So all in all, this is just way easier and way cheaper for me. Okay. Smush it to seal it all together, and we'll cut it out. Hey, I can't check YouTube right now. How many people are currently watching? There's a storm brewing here, so if the stream ends, it's because I lost power. Okay, I'm about half done with this one. Fingers are getting sticky. That will happen. It's fine. The tape protects everything. All right, done. And I'm going to smush it to flatten it out. And now we got 2 of them. Okay. 60. All right. Now, a quick note about facing. You'll notice that this figure was drawn in such a way that you can have facing. All right. If the artwork is such that the figure is looking directly at you, like then it doesn't really make sense to mirror it, because you could see their face on both sides looking at you, which is kind of weird. Now, maybe that doesn't bother you. It doesn't bother me for RPGs. I mean, it doesn't bother me for anything where facing doesn't matter, okay? But if you care about that, then when you do your Google image search like we did earlier, strive to find some artwork that is sort of, you know, a 3/4 view or a side view. All right? All right, so next, we're almost done. Here's what we're gonna do. 1-inch washer. Okay, bought these online. We're simply going to hot glue one of these to it. Now, whenever you hot glue metal, you should hot glue the thing first and not the metal. Metal is an extremely good heat sink, and as soon as I put that bead of hot glue on, it's gonna cool like almost instantly. So that's why I apply it to this and then stick it on. You'll get a stronger bond. Now this one, you can see her 2 feet with a gap in the middle. Not all figures are like that. If you want, when you do your Photoshop, you could leave black there so it's a flat bottom. It's not really going to matter on the table. So just something I'm pointing out. All right, so hot glue. Make sure I'm in frame here. Put a blob on each foot and then stick it right on. Again, I would wait until the figure's glue is dry to do this, but I've done this enough that it's fine. All right, that's cooled. So there we go. Now the advantage of this is, well, the one time. Okay, 99% of the time, well, 99% of the time, she'll land on her feet. All right. So as you're moving it, it's fine. You can bump the table, and she's not going to slide or fall over or anything. This washer weighs a lot, so that's one way to do it. Okay. The other way to do it is, I'm going to pause for questions here. Question, do you think it'd be possible to do paper minis for small scale games, 6mm to 15mm? It's certainly possible, but if you do, I would not recommend that you, say, take this figure and scale it down to 15mm. It'll be extremely difficult to cut out. So you want to search for artwork that's very bold and very simple so that you can still see what the heck it is at 6mm or 15mm. Yeah, that'd be my tip. Process should be the same, just scale changes. Yeah, but again, I would recommend simple, bold art, because at that scale you won't be able to. This is very detailed artwork, and at that scale it's just going to look like nothing. It's going to look like a blob. All right. So anyway, dollar store foam board, which the brand is Ready Board. We've talked about that a lot. Scotty's grip and everything. This is the DM Scotty find. Normally, I'm very careful and I measure out how big I want it to be. For this, I'm just save time. I'm going to cut it freehand, about 1 inch. I'm going to cut a square. Okay. So here's a square. I'm going to peel the paper off of one side only. Okay. Leave the paper on the other side. Take your knife, score it down the middle. Just score it, don't cut all the way through. And then break it to crack it, just like that. The paper on the other side's holding it there, holding it together. Then we put a thin bead of hot glue in there. And then quickly take our miniature, stick the feet in, and close it back up. Okay, just like that. Then what I like to do, because the foam isn't particularly strong or heavy, I'll take a penny, or if it's big enough you can take a washer or find smaller washers, because that's a 1 inch washer. Just a bead of hot glue right in the middle, stick the penny on, hold for a moment, and there we go. And that prevents the foam from unfolding again. Gives some rigidity and some strength. Okay, and again, she lands standing up. It's got good weight to it. Okay, so I'm going to try and get a good close-up here with the two different methods for basing. If you do this one with the foam, you'll notice that we lost some of the miniature because it's sunk in there. So what you can do in Photoshop is add whatever this is, like 3/16 of an inch. Add just a black bar to the bottom of her feet so that gets sunk in, and then her feet are level with the top. We didn't do that earlier, but again, episode 9 talks you through how to do that. Okay. At this point, we are pretty much done. The only thing left is to flock them, which I'm not going to waste your time doing, because you can watch episode 9 for this, or any of the other episodes on my channel. I pretty much always do this. Apply some white glue on the surface of the base, and then add whatever you want. I have pebbles, and I have sand. Okay? And so I might just add a couple pebbles, and then just dip the rest of the thing in sand. Okay? Again, I'm not going to waste your time with that right now. Flocking is easy. Go wild with it. And you'll see some examples in just a moment as we go through the slideshow. Alright, so that is real-time creation of cardstock minis, including narration and explanation. How long have we been at this? 45 minutes. So, you can see once you get a hold of your image editing software, whatever it may be, that's really the long pole in the tent. Everything else is pretty easy. So if you're not going to pony up for Photoshop, check out GIMP. Again, it is on my list, but I can't promise you when I'll do an episode 9 redux where I talk about how to use GIMP to do this instead of Photoshop. So I'm going to move back over, and I'll see you in a sec. Alright, let's pause just a minute here for questions. And I'm going to get a bite of pizza. Okay. I thought I heard Ready Board started using better glue. Yes, they have. What I've noticed is one side of it is hard to get off the paper. The other side is not so bad. But if they are, take rubbing alcohol, a little bit of rubbing alcohol on it, paper comes right off. Okay, sorry. Black figures that have a lot of detail on screen never print out. Looks like on screen. Any tips? Yeah, so like I said earlier, I'm not sure if you just joined us, Raytheon, but printers do bias black, so in your Photoshop or your GIMP, whatever, adjust the brightness up a little bit. Experiment with your printer to find its sweet spot. Photoshop CS2 is free from Adobe. It is sort of if you owned it previously, it's no comment. Okay, the food of champions. No ale tankard today. No, not today. It's a weeknight for me. So. All right, power save 2. Don't worry, this live stream will be up later. You can watch it later if you want. All right, so now what I'd like to do is take you through a slideshow, and I've got, I think, like 200 pictures or something. I'm going to show you everything I've done for Kings of War, which is a war game that has big blocks of units, and then there's some 40K stuff at the end too. So let me just get this set up here. Give me just a sec. Once again, that's not working. So go here. Close that, close that. There we go. Close Photoshop. Alright, so I got the chat, and alright, that looks good. Okay, so got the chat here. Alright, well, I mean, if you're going no comment, CS6 is also free. Okay, I think I see what you mean. Alright, what is a cardstock miniature? I just joined the stream. Okay, after this is all over, you'll be able to rewatch the stream if you want. It'll take a couple hours to encode, I think, but you're also about to see what a cardstock miniature is. I'm about to kick off a slideshow. Can everyone see these demons here? Just going to make sure I have the chat and the pictures here ready to go. Again, there's like a 30-second delay on the chat, so I apologize for the awkwardness. Okay, thanks, Harrison. Alright, so what we have here are some units of abyssal demons. And it's not working for some reason. Okay, there we go. So this is, I think, 100 by 80 millimeter base. It's multi-based, and it's got a bunch of cardstock, just demons here, and then a jet of flame coming up the middle, kind of scenic. In Kings of War, you don't care about exact model count. So as long as the overall base footprint of the unit is correct, then you're good to go. Why is it doing this? Alright. Here's a unit of bigger demons. I experimented a little bit. This is chipboard at the bottom. If you remember the lava tile video, that's the exact same technique. Some dollar store foam board for platforms that they're standing on. I'll just let this roll so that it doesn't mess up. There's a little bit of sand and pebbles glued on there and dry brushed with grays. This guy, look right here, I attached a flame jet to his hand, so you can add 3D elements to 2D cardstock miniatures to give them a little extra oomph. Okay. So yeah, just kind of a scenic base. Again, Kings of War, it's awesome. Okay, apparently I thought really highly of these. Sorry. Alright, and here they are fighting some orcs. Right here is an actual... This is a real rock from my backyard that I glued on and painted like everything else. Here's a little bit of homemade flocking down here. And these orcs are facing in different directions because orcs are not, not organized. You can see that these guys have a very rounded shape to them. They were easy to cut out, so I'm just pointing that out. This is my Forces of Basiliae army. Okay, I'm pretty proud of this one. Here's some, I think these are Games Workshop Elohi. Yep, here's a horde of crossbowmen. Here's some paladins up close. Again, here I took their shields and I hot glued them on perpendicularly. So again, 3D elements. Cardstock armies, there's a giant dragon. Okay, so here's the giant dragon I think you're asking about. So the wings, look here, you can see a bead of hot glue. So the main body here is a single printout. It's a single miniature. And then these guys basically are their own miniature. Okay, I made them using the exact technique that we just walked through, except all I made was a wing. Okay, and then obviously I made 2 of them and hot glued them to his back right here. Yep, these are simply cardstock wings. Okay, I made a cardstock miniature, except all it was a wing. This thing in real life is like 8 inches tall or something, so I think I had to do it diagonally on the paper so it would fit. Yeah. Same concept here with these phoenixes. See, the wings are attached? It's just hot glue on their back. Here's how you can get creative with bases. I forget who asked earlier, but you can get creative with bases. There's some flocking. I see what's happening. I can't have pause clicked. Here I have the leader mounted on his own stone. Kind of scenic. Yeah, phoenixes. The plural of phoenix. Alright. Hey Jake, Mutada is in the house. No, you didn't miss it. You're listening to it right now. But you can watch the whole thing later if you want. We're going through a slideshow right now, and so get comfortable because I got a lot of stuff to go through. How did you get a picture with perfect scale wings like that? So at risk of getting this video pulled, I got these wings from a miniature on the Games Workshop website. All of their models, you can do a 360 panorama in your browser. So I do that, and I do a screenshot with my keyboard. I hit print screen, and then I paste that into Photoshop, and from there I extract it just like we did earlier. Delete all the stuff around it, scale it as big as I want, you know, give it a frame, etc. So that's how I got the wings. I found an angle. You know what? Let me just give it a shot. Games Workshop, games-workshop.com. And we'll go to Warhammer Age of Sigmar. I forget where it is. Is it a Star Dragon? Star Drake, that's what it is. Yeah. So $240, that's quite a bit. All right, right here you can see you can look at a 360 panorama. And so you can drag it around and find an angle where, like right here, you can't see much of the wing. So you drag it around till you can see a good view of the wing. Right here is good. So right here I would press print screen on my keyboard, and then I can go into Photoshop, whoops, and paste it in. And from there I can, you know, delete all the stuff around it with the magic wand tool, just like we did earlier. All right, so that's how that's done. Again, if you do that, you're doing it for home use. You're not taking it to any sanctioned events, and you're not selling it. You're doing it strictly for your own enjoyment. DMG! Oh, we're in rarefied air here, folks. Doing this is fine, is it? Right, so yes, this is home personal use only. You are a great example of why they wouldn't want to pull a video because of picture use. You did pictures, found it super fun, purchased the product. That is true. As of now, I have been purchasing Games Workshop miniatures. I've been getting into painting because I think the products are so excellent. I also intend to buy 40K 8th edition. But anyway, I'm sorry, let's continue on here. So this, again, scenic ideas. So I stacked some foam to make rocks and hot glued his foot there, and he's sort of standing on it. Here's a back view. Notice that the tail is curled. So in real life, the thing printed and it was long. It's like 11 inches long. And I did that intentionally, knowing I was going to curl the tail and attach it to the base like this. And another view. I guess I figured this would be a hit, so I included him a lot. Here's how the Phoenix is mounted. You might remember these guys from episode whatever it was, but I've attached these banners. So this is a DM Scotty orc banner. That was a great episode. I just took that concept and applied it here. Glued a bead onto the toothpick up here and got these, you know, paladins on whatever these are. The paladins, you'll notice I just cut a slit in between their legs and then hot glued them onto the back of this dragon thing. And then to their hand, I hot glued this banner, which is just toothpicks and paper. If you're familiar with Kings of War, these are all based correctly. This is 25 by 50 millimeter. I like to color the base, the side of the base a lighter color, like this. Thanks, Jake. Alright, so more pictures, more, again, here they are mounted on the back. Anytime you have a mount, you simply glue them on perpendicularly. Again, this is how adding a 3D element to a 2D cardstock miniature can really make the whole thing pop. I mean, this right here looks okay. There is no substitute for the real thing, but this looks pretty cool, I think. Alright, now we're getting into the good stuff. This is my elven army. And actually these guys are in movement trays that I made. This is simply chipboard with a thin strip of foam board on there. And every single one of these is an individual miniature that I made. And they sit in this tray. Same over here. Here's some archers. Here's a mage. Here's some tree monster things. Close-up view. Some emerald green flocking. I figured for elves I would give them a brighter flock. I flocked the movement tray itself, the rims, exactly the same as the bases. Here's some cavalry. As I talked about earlier, that I didn't actually do, pebbles and sand, that's all this is. And then sawdust flocking. Raytheon, I don't know of any other websites that do the 360-degree thing. And here's some soldiers. The mage. I took a Swarovski crystal and hot glued it to each side of his staff. Again, 3D element on a 2D miniature. Bring it to life. Here's a whole bunch of orcs in progress. All I've done is glued on the sand, haven't painted them yet. Here's some elven spearmen. Toothpicks painted up as spears, mounted at different angles to give the unit a little bit of a chaotic look, give it a filled out look. When you're wargaming, that's kind of the vibe that you want. And here they are about to fight some orcs. Again, pennies on the bottom for weight. This whole tray here has like 20 pennies in it. It's actually a pretty hefty unit. How many hours have you spent making these? Okay, let me give context. To make this whole unit of this unit of orcs here would probably take 4 to 6 hours, start to finish. I have some pictures later on that show every single unit that I've made in an epic battle, so stay tuned. By the way, how many do we still have tuned in? Again, I can't check YouTube. Alright, moving on to Forces of Neritica. So here's just the bases, and these are done up for a mermaid army, basically. Here's a couple of riders, here's a giant. This is filled in with water effects. This is the Black Magic Craft water formula. I use those colors and that same product. Thanks, guys. 42. And here's the Mermaid King with his his chariot and everything. I did a whole episode devoted to making this exact model, so you can go watch that if you're interested. Got some crystals on there. Yeah. So here's my whole Trident Forces of Neuretica army. And again, making this horde of placoderms back here took a while. But it's worth it. See, you get a nice filled out look. You notice some of them, the hook is going a different way. It's good if you can find multiple poses, it's good to do that. Nathan, hey, thanks very much and thanks for joining us. Alright, Night Stalkers. This is an unusual army in Kings of War. I don't think it has a counterpart anywhere, but Night Stalkers are like Cthulhu and Lovecraftian based army. So in the center is this huge legion of bloodworms. Here's some shapeshifters, which I just used an alien gray for. A couple of monsters. Here's a close-up. So again, these are like Cthulhu and Lovecraftian. So the base is teased with hot glue, based with black, and then dry brushed with purple. That's how I got that swirling. Here's 60 bloodworms. These didn't take as long as you'd think. I mean, look, it's a fairly simple shape. It doesn't have a lot of, you know, sticky outy things like those miniatures we did earlier. Here's some Reapers. I talked about how this unit is the exact same image, but half of them have been mirror imaged, and then as I offset them, some get, I'll say, they're randomly attached. So from a single image, I'm able to get a seemingly chaotic looking unit, nice and filled out. Here's a monster, and another monster, and another monster. And here's a unit of cavalry. I think these are nightmares. Some shadow hounds. And another monster. And here's, again, movement trays. It's just a chipboard with a thin strip of dollar store foam board glued on there. Which is your favorite army? I would have to say Night Stalkers because they're so weird. They were my favorite ones to make also. So, yeah, this one. For fantasy. When we get to 40K, I'll answer differently. Alright, here's some orcs. Alright, here's skulls on some pikes. And their arms are bent. Here's some cavalry. Seen these already. Oh, chariots. So this is just some chain from Michaels, and I made these chariots using toothpicks and some beads for the hubs there. But these have cardstock boars as the creatures pulling it, and then two guys hot glued onto the chariot itself. One of them had a convenient pose with his arm upstretched, so I glued some chain up there and then down at the whatever you call it, the yoke. Good view of them right there. Oh, here's a really good view of them. Actually, these guys were one of the first cardstock mini models that I ever made, so these go back a ways. Underside of the chariots. Before attaching anything with just the boars. Okay, we don't need to go into excruciating detail here. Clearly I was really proud of these or something, so. Alright, moving on. Okay, undead. Here's a lichen. Here's an undead on an undead dragon. Some banshees or something, and some revenants. Okay, different paint scheme here. Base with black, dry brush with tan, side of golden brown. Here they are sort of in scene. Here's some werewolves up here. Skeleton archers down here. Actually, I'm starting to get nauseous thinking about how much time I've spent on this. To get measurements in centimeters, simply multiply an inch by 2.54. That'll give you centimeters. Answering Rakion's question. Alright, moving along. This is just a collection, nothing here that we haven't seen already. Oh, there's some gargoyles. Some more demon stuff, elven archers. Try and have your armies themed. Elves are very orderly, so I have them all the same pose in order. Darn it. As you see here, orcs, I'll have them more chaotic. Demons, like right here, are more chaotic. Here's an early version of that dragon. I didn't adjust the hue. Okay, and here we go. So here's every fantasy army that I've made on a 6x4 mat, with the inn that I made also from episode whatever. So we'll swoop through this scene here. It's a lot of miniatures here. Do you DM D&D often? I used to. I don't anymore. It's been very hard. Starting up the family and everything is there's just haven't had enough time. So recently I did an editorial talking about why wargaming is so great. A lot less prep time for just coming on over and playing a game. How do I store these? In a box with a couple of inserts that I made. So they're 3-inch tall drawers basically. Nothing I make is over 3 inches tall for the most part, so all of them fit in there. Here's the Neuridicans pouring in. We're getting near the end, guys, I promise. That's a nice shot. So what I love, you know, the whole hobby side of wargaming is the miniatures, and that's why buying and painting them there's no substitute for that. But getting that mass feel, having tons of models out there, and having a densely packed battlefield, this is the kind of scene. This is what makes wargaming so awesome. And look at the mage on the hill. I mean, it feels very epic. So I'm really glad to have discovered wargaming in this past year. I'm kind of bummed I didn't discover it decades ago. Alright, so moving on. That's the curtain call. There we go. Oh, and now the Night Stalkers are in there in the back. So, a lot of miniatures. I would guess there's probably 60 hours of work on this mat right here. How'd you cut out the interior of the curves? Just with scissors. So, yes, and it's not a problem to bend the miniature a little bit in order to get room for the scissors, because again, like we talked about earlier, the glue is still wet. So the thing is flexible, and it's okay to do that. Once you're all done cutting, you mash it with your palm and flatten it back out anyways. Alright, so that's all the Kings of War stuff. Now I just have a few pictures here for sci-fi. This is for a game called Warhammer 40K. This is a land speeder. This is not cardstock miniature. This is a little more than that. But do you ever X-Acto? Yes, I use an X-Acto knife if I have to cut a hole out. So, you know, for an archer, if I need to cut out between the bow and the string, for example. If I have to cut a hole out, I'll use not an X-Acto knife, but my crafting knife. Okay, here's some cardstock miniatures for Space Marines. Bikes. group of infantry, some Terminators on 40mm bases. Now these guys are on washers right here. The Terminators over here are on bigger bases. I made those with my 3D printer, but you could just as easily take some chipboard, which you could buy through me as an Amazon affiliate, by the way. Just check my Facebook page. And you could cut out a 40mm base yourself. No problem. Bikes, some infantry. Are all these models off of Google Image? Some are. Some, like the ones you're looking at right now, are from the Games Workshop website. Some of the fantasy ones were also. And then some of them are actually from Mayhem in Paper. They're on DriveThruRPG, and those are models that I actually bought the PDFs for because they're great. Again, Mayhem in Paper. Just search for that. And so some of those I bought. How come you didn't 3D print the Termies at that point? I tried 3D printing and the quality is atrocious. In my opinion, it's not there yet. We're years away from that being a viable alternative. So if I'm going to go 3D, I'll just buy the real models, which is exactly what I did. So I have some Terminators, but even at 0.05mm layer height, the quality is just not there for printing miniatures yet, in my opinion. Alright, so moving along. You should build one of those bikes and do a video on it. I thought about the bikes. The bikes are a little complex and they're not enough reward for me, I don't think, based on their scale. But I'll think about it. Hero Forge, I think I Googled it once like a year ago and was thinking about doing custom minis with it, but the price I think was a non-starter. Okay, a Necron army. So we have the Annihilation Barge, or a Doom Glider, if you will, from episode, I think, 55. We've got some Lich Guard, Wraiths, Destroyer Overlord, and Necron Warriors. For these, a single pebble got glued on. I based in black, dry brush with gray. Then I paint all this with a dark green, then a lighter coat with a light green, and then finally I took a toothpick and hit this edge with a lime green to get the glowstone. These are just a bunch of beads glued together. You can watch the tutorial for this guy here. Yep, moving along, moving along. For some reason there's 2 copies of each of these. Alright, here's some things in context. This is some Eldar. This is an Eldar Falcon, grav tank kind of thing. And some dragons against some Tyranids that are coming in. So here's some Tyranids. These are 2 Carnifexes on 60mm bases. Here's a Mawkor on a 90 by 120mm oval. Again, I made with the 3D printer. And here's some little Hormagaunts. And you can see their claws, their arms are separate. Just like the dragon's wings from earlier. You find a good angle, take a screenshot. So these arms are just their own printed miniature, and then you hot glue them onto the side. So that's how those work. Here's a good view from the side. Some scenery. Some Rangers up here. Yep. Slightly different color scheme for the Eldar, just because they're a different army. A little bit lighter brown. So who was asking about base colors earlier? Up here is a Wraith Lord. That thing's like 4 inches tall. I did an episode on that. Good side view of all the Tyranids. Harrison, okay. Yep, so this was just a battle, Eldar versus Tyranids, and here's a roll call with all my 40k handmade or you know, cardstock miniatures. The Space Marines, Dreadnought, and a tank. Here's the Carnifexes. Here's the Hormagaunts. They have a real swarmy feel up close, which is exactly what they're supposed to have. The Eldar, including the Wraithlord and the Eldar Falcon. And the Necrons. That's everybody. So I would say for these guys, looking at this table, not the terrain, but just the miniatures, that's probably another 60 hours of work right there, something like that. All right, and we're back to the beginning. So, all right. Are we breaking up? Can you still hear me okay? Is everything all right? I'm going to assume so. All right, so we built some custom miniatures. I showed you 2 ways to base them. If you need to refresh, you can watch this again later once it's posted. Probably takes 2 hours or something to encode. And or you can watch episode 9 of my series. We just went through the slideshow showing you pretty much everything I've ever made. And then that's the end of my agenda. So is there any, let's see, what is it, 9:15? Let's take a few minutes here open for general discussion. What's everyone up to? Do you have any work you want to share? Or, actually, I just remembered you can't put links in the chat. It doesn't let you for some reason. But any questions or thoughts on cardstock minis? Do we still have our other celebrities? Jake and Nathan and Gareth. Any hints on new projects? I just finished the functioning waterfall. That was the big one. The next one is I also just rebuilt my studio again. I'll share a picture of it soon, but the next project is this. It's been black bombed so far, but this is it's about 14 inches across or so, and it's there we go. It's a stepped pyramid, and the idea is you can put anything you put the MacGuffin for your adventure or your war game or whatever up here. So it's got some like positions, tactical positions, high ground, a lot you could do with it. And this is just XPS. So, as Jake from Mini Terrain Domain says, with the stones, you've got to earn it. There is no shortcut. Let's see. Have you ever tried Wren Shape? No, never heard of it. So I'll go ahead and throw that in Notepad. Someone else earlier mentioned Rick and Morty, so check that out. Someone else asked if I've seen Critical Role. Yeah, I watched an episode or 2 of Critical Role. Might throw it on in the background or something, but yeah, I generally don't watch D&D games. I won't bring up the whole Scotty discussion, but I tend to kind of fall on Scotty's side of the argument. Have you ever tried? So right now I'm working on a game dev project. It bounced back and forth between that and crafting. What kind of game? Is it a video game or tabletop or what? Oscar, thanks for joining. Harrison, how long do these usually last you? Any longevity problems? Nope, the first one I ever made is still perfectly fine. They last forever as far as I can tell. Again, you got 5 layers of material, cardstock, paper, and then tape on the outsides, which is like really good for protection. And again, when you cut it, it cinches the edge shut, and the edge is shut, and you get a really nice finish. Is the largest cardstock miniature you've done the Standing Dragon? Yes, that blue dragon is the largest cardstock mini that I've done. PC game based on D25th. That's good. So Baldur's Gate was based off 2nd, and all those Infinity games. So there's what was it called that came out recently for D? It was allegedly a D&D 5th edition game, but it plays like Diablo or something. It looks terrible in my opinion. It's by Wizard, like by Wizards. I forget what it was called. Just checking YouTube here. Okay, cool. I'll check out Renshape. So again, for anyone who joined late or in the middle, cardstock minis are for individual use. You don't sell them. You don't even. So if you make a sheet in Photoshop, like I showed you how to earlier, you don't share that. You don't have permission to redistribute that image, even for free. Okay. What we're doing is in a different media, video versus image, and for educational purposes. True Tiles booth, Gen Con Indianapolis. Is this possible? I'll have to talk to Ryan. I won't be able to get to Gen Con, just with work and everything else going on in life. I won't be able to get to Gen Con. But Ryan, my partner, who's the real brains behind the operation, certainly talk to him. Cool. So Wolf, what language are you using? What's your day job? I'm the manager of reactor engineering at a nuclear power plant. Would you bring cardstock to a con? If the con is like a Games Workshop con, then you certainly don't take cardstock miniatures to it. Not only would they not be allowed in a game, but the players would not play with you on principle. And I kind of understand that. You know, they invested the time and money into their real 3D miniatures. Taking cardstock to a con, if you're going to run a personal game or whatever, I don't know, it's sort of a gray area. I don't know. I am not a lawyer, so I can't say. It would really depend on what you're doing with them at the con. Will your crafting needs ever be satisfied? Can you count to be here forever? Yeah, I'm going to be here for a long time. We'll never be satisfied. Don't worry about that. I know I don't have a set release schedule. Sometimes I go a month without releasing, and sometimes, like last week, I released 2 episodes within 3 days of each other. I just do it whenever I can. And that's why my Patreon's set up the way it is. I don't do the monthly thing. I think you should get paid when I do something, and only when I do something. So that's why it's set up that way. So I'll be here for a very long time. Unity 3D. I messed with Unity 3D a little bit. Using C#. Cool. A real man. I use JavaScript. Basically, you're a competent Homer Simpson. Yeah, kinda. Yeah, I have competent Homer Simpsons working for me. I meant a private thing like we have, Wargames Association, 100, 200 people. Okay, so JP Morris, if you go to the Kings of War Facebook groups, or the Warhammer Facebook group, or the forums for either of those 2 games, the general consensus is going to be, because I've done a lot of lurking in those, and I've even put out little feelers of posts before, and the general consensus is okay for your garage or your home use, but I wouldn't want to play against it. A lot of people against it on general principle. They want to play against proper 3D miniature armies. So I wouldn't risk taking it to a wargaming con of any kind. Yeah, I think actually I had a franchise that I really like Myst, the video game, the exploration video, the classic. I did a series called Worldgate in Flash, and I released the first 3 episodes of it. The 4th and final episode I was going to do in Unity. It's still out there on GameJolt.com. There's just a tech demo of Worldgate 4 that I did. I don't know if I haven't checked on it in years, and I'll probably never finish it. But if you want to check it out, you can see. Again, it's called Worldgate, one word, Worldgate 4, and it's on GameJolt.com. What teasers can you offer in your future crafting projects? So again, there's this bad boy coming soon. Beyond this, let me check my master planning document. One thing I'm going to be doing is a tutorial on how to publish a module. So I'll show you how I actually write and format things in Microsoft Word and lay it out and then make it a PDF, and then how to commission artwork, and then how to get it on DM's Guild and make money with it. So I'll be doing, that's sort of a meta topic, but it is a DIY, so I'll do a tutorial on that. Thinking about doing a modular outdoor terrain board with the big foam mats as a base. Would this be viable in your opinion? Yeah, that's how I would do it personally. I wouldn't use tiles for outdoor. The areas are so big that you'd need to make a ton of tiles, and you have seams that I just wouldn't bother with it. So I think that yeah, in my opinion, I would go with that. Plans for terrain accessories in the near future? Yeah, I have my master planning document somewhere. It's got 60 or 70 more ideas to check, to get to. Here we go. Stepped pyramid, an antenna array, an elven grove. I'm going to do something else with glowing LEDs, so that custom lighting that I did, that episode, we're going to really leverage that and do a pretty epic set piece. Crashed ship. So some people have asked, can you go back to doing fantasy? And I understand that, but since discovering Warhammer 40K, I like to mix it up. I do one for them, one for me. So I do some sci-fi now, and I still do some fantasy. And I think you've seen that in recent episodes. And I try to do pieces that could be used in an RPG or a war game. Minefields, an outpost, a ruined temple, a planar map room. That one's going to be pretty different. And I want to do a... did anyone have Mighty Max when they were a kid? Mighty Max, the little play sets that opened up, and then you'd have the little adventure inside, all the scenery and the little figures. I want to make basically one of those that's enormous, and so it's a whole evening's adventure in like a spire. It's not just a spire, it's sort of an observatory with laboratories attached to it. But anyway, it'll be for a fantasy setting, and you'll be able to remove parts of the building and peel away layers, including secret areas that'll be very well made and hidden, so that the players literally sitting at the table can't see it, but once their character makes a check, you can suddenly remove this panel and a secret area is shown. So kind of keying off that Mighty Max thing from when I was a kid. That'll be an enormous project, and it won't be too soon. On the subject of writing modules, I have interesting high-level ideas, but struggle filling in details. Any tips on fleshing out the details? What I would suggest is, so you have your high-level idea, you have your struggle on filling in with details. Come up with one new monster and one new magic item. All the other monsters and magic items in the adventure you can pull from the DMG. But come up with some new original thing for both of those and make them weird. They don't even have to fit the adventure or the theme. Just come up with something weird, and you'll be surprised at how easy it is to revise that idea so that it does fit. You'll also be surprised at how other ideas spin off of that monster's weird new ability and might dictate the design of your dungeon. So I would say you start small, develop a monster and develop a magic item, and try and build an adventure around those. All right. Well, everyone, 'tis 9:30. I think I am about ready to call it. So hopefully this was helpful in expanding the stuff that was in episode 9, which is an old episode, wasn't made very well. It's back when I had my first phone camera, 2 phones ago, before I knew much about video editing. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great evening, and that is all. Peace.